Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another installment in our new figure showcase series, where I'm going to take a quick look at a new figure I'm adding into the collection. And for today's installment, we're going in a pretty different direction from the norm, at least for me. Right, so we're not looking at superheroes, we're not looking at Star Wars or military. We're going to be taking a look at the third-party version of Dwight Manfredi Pop Toys based on the Paramount Plus show Tulsa King. So definitely a digression from that typical superhero fare, and also a first experience for me with this company. Listen, with third-party companies, I'm always a little hesitant, especially when I've never had an experience with them before, just because when it comes to third-party, oftentimes the final product tends to not be the best. They tend to do a lot of photoshopping on the promo shots, so you just have to be aware of that when you get into that game. And listen, we've seen some recent indications of that and some recent releases that have been a little lackluster in the final. But I did think the promo shots for this figure looked pretty incredible. And when doing a little bit of research, I realized this was the company that did that really well-received Scorpion figure from the new Mortal Kombat movie that everybody seemed to like. So I was definitely a little hyped up about it. And look, the way I collect, well, I am attracted to those amazing pieces that just look visually stunning, like most collectors. I do tend to primarily collect based on IP, and Tulsa King was a huge surprise to me. Obviously, I was going to watch it because growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was hard not to be immersed into that action movie genre. And obviously, Stallone and Schwarzenegger were those characters, those larger-than-life, iconic characters, or played those iconic characters. And while their star power has definitely waned recently, they still remain film icons to me. So when the trailer started coming out for this show, I was 100% on board and looking forward to watching, and I'm glad to say I wasn't disappointed. Story basically starts with Stallone's character, Dwight the General Manfredi, a mob capo, being released from prison after serving over 20 years for murder. And when he comes out, he's expecting to get repaid for his silence and his service to the family. Of course, things have changed, including the leadership, and instead of fortune and glory, he gets sent to Tulsa as a way of kind of being exiled from the mob. But this being Sylvester Stallone, you can't keep him down, right? So, look, if you haven't watched the show and you're even slightly interested in the subject matter, I would highly recommend it because it's really well done and Stallone shines as well as the rest of the cast. It's definitely one of those great surprises. So look, let's start by taking a look at the entire package we're getting here from Pop Toys. And I'm going to tell you, it's pretty impressive off the bat, just with the feel of everything. You do get some hands, some paper accessories, and some other small accessories as well. But the highlight is really the alternate look, and more importantly, the way that Pop Toys has set everything up to allow you to display that look without it being on the figure. There's just a great feel to these accessories that was a little surprising to me in a positive light. So let's jump into things, and we'll start as we always do with the hands. So here we're not getting much, just two extra ones to help hold some of the unique pieces. But I actually really like them. Paint-wise, there is a slight sheen to them that makes them look a little plasticky, but there's also some great detail work there, from the creases on the fingers to the veins that you can see on the top of the hand. And they also do look aged, so that's a big plus, and the right hand to go along with this figure. Also, speaking of the right hand, it includes the pinky ring with a nice diamond on it. So it's a great detail and it's really well done. I'm glad they got that right. One slight thing I'm not crazy about, though, the fingernails. They were clearly trying to detail the nails like you would in a real hand, and you can even see the slight white line where it meets the skin. But the way they painted them, it almost looks like some nail polish, so that's the only slight questionable thing here. Next, you get a revolver, and this is another surprise because it's actually die-cast, so something unexpected. Detail-wise, it looks decent, with a nice matte black handle and the silver body. Gun's barrel also includes a nice imprinted piece of text that says Python 357 on it, so that's great. Again, some nice detailing, but it's one solid piece. The cylinder doesn't rotate or come out, and the hammer doesn't move back. And then you also get 6 rounds. Now, these are super tiny, so I'm sure at some point I'm going to lose some of these. But they actually look pretty good for their size, with a nice detail at the base showing the rim at the bottom of the casing. I think here the only thing I would have wanted might have been some functioning pieces to that gun, so you could either put the bullets in the cylinder or even have the figure posed in a reloading stance. But nice overall. Not the best 6-scale weapon I've seen, but very decent. Now next up you get some paper goods, and these are also surprisingly well done. So first you get 2 boarding passes. They're just printed, but they're printed on a nice solid glossy paper, and they're nicely legible. And you can see the JFK to Tulsa nicely imprinted on it, as well as Dwight's name. So I like that. And then you get the packets of money, which are individually printed bills, and I love that some of them look used and dirty with a nice tape holding them together. It's nothing crazy or outlandish, but they did a really good job recreating these pieces. Next, just some accessories for him to hold. First being his cigar, nicely done, nothing crazy here, but some nice paint apps at the lip tip. And the second is an espresso cup and saucer. If you've watched the show, I feel like that cup of coffee is a nice accessory to go along with him. Nothing crazy, just very simple but nicely executed. And then you get a very distinctive pair of sunglasses that he uses in the show. And I immediately recognize them, so that's a positive. Lenses are slightly transparent, so you can see the figure's eyes underneath if you look hard enough, and the sides have distinctive silver detailing on them. Only issue I have here was out of the box, my glasses were a little warped, and you can kind of see that from the top-down view. Not sure if you can really see it from the video, but the legs are skewed to one side. Not a deal breaker, as long as they fit well on the sculpt. Now next up is the accessory that really surprised me. So you get an alternate look for the figure with this nice black suit and shirt, and it's all placed on this really nice display. It's almost like a store mannequin display, but very classy, maybe in fitting with Dwight's pedigree, right? The body holding the suit up is a nice fabric, soft element to help the suit keep its shape, and then the bar holding that up is actual metal, and it includes a side piece where you can drape the pants and the belts, which is also metal, and it all pegs into an actual wood base. So it really feels great in hand, looks nice, and it's just something I haven't seen before with a 6-scale figure. And it can also serve like a diorama piece and let you display the alternate look in a great way. So props to Pop Toys for figuring that out. And similarly, the display base, nothing crazy, very simple, rectangular base with the Tulsa King sticker on the front. But the big positive again, the base is actual wood with a metal crotch grabber, and it just gives the overall piece a feeling of better quality than I was expecting for third party. So I just wanted to point that out. So let's get into the figure itself, and we're going to start with the sculpt. And look, it's third party, so I wasn't expecting to be blown away, but I think the sculpt actually turned out pretty well. I'm not going to tell you it's perfect, because it's not. I think it's, first of all, almost a little too young. Maybe they should have aged it up a little bit more, and his hair and facial hair should be a little more gray than they are. But I don't think there's any mistaking who it's supposed to be. And then I think the eyes are a little bit off. I don't know if they're too small or the spacing is off, but overall it's a pretty solid effort for a third-party release. And beyond that, the detail work is just phenomenal. While the likeness is a little off, I do have to applaud the work for the facial details with the wrinkles and even the vein popping out of his right temple. It's nice, and the detail on the hair is really well done. So I would say it's almost like 90% there, which is really, really solid. Now, I do think once you put the sunglasses on, the sculpt looks great. Are the glasses a little oversized? Maybe just a bit, but again, a pretty close interpretation of what we saw on screen. And fortunately, once they're placed on the sculpt, the slight skewing and bent glass legs aren't an issue. But I do think the sculpt improves with them on. Now, let's look at the rest of the figure, and it's not a piece that I will immediately say visually grabs anyone's attention at the end of the day, right? It's just a guy in a suit. But first things first, the body they used has some heft to it, and they did add some padding to flesh the figure out. But the key here that they got really well is the tailoring and the fit on the suit. It's just impressive. And for a character like Dwight Manfredi, you want a nice suit. If you've watched the show, he cares about his appearance, so that's something I'm glad they got right. And the material they used just feels great to the touch and drapes nicely. It's not too heavy and not too light. It feels like a nice suit might, or you would expect it to feel, just in 6-scale form. Same material choice extends to the polo. It feels nice and looks good. Now, only issue I had is the neck. It's not as bad as that Castor Troy I reviewed from 108 Toys, where you could see the joint and the body was a different color from the neck. But with the polo, there is a visible joint, and his chain that he wears tends to get stuck there, which is a shame in an otherwise pretty incredible looking figure. And then the alternate look. I'll say this, I do hate having to switch out clothes. There's always fear that I'm going to tear or rip something up, so I proceeded with caution, but I wanted to get the alternate look on. And I have to say, this might actually be my favorite of the two. The shirt is another nice material choice here that just fits well and feels silky, and the suit and pants just great tailoring and great fit. And this is what I would have loved from those 108 Toys figures from Face Off. So I have to give a ton of credit to this company for nailing that aspect of the figure, especially on a character like Manfredi. On top of that, the accessories are real metal. His gold watch, metal. The chain on his right hand, metal. Chain around his neck is real metal. So they chose great materials. And even the black dress shirt, if you look at his sleeves, you can see the cufflink detail. So that's awesome. I think the figure is just executed remarkably well. Now, there are some issues beyond the sculpt. Like I mentioned, I'm not a fan of the neck joint. It's exposed and visible with the gray student polo, and the chain gets stuck in the joint, which is why for the black suit version, I placed it over his shirt to be able to see it. But unlike the Castor Troy from 108, at least they picked a body that matched the neck, the color of the neck, as opposed to some very light plastic. And then the other issue, the body is stiff, and while the version of Stallone isn't the most dynamic on the show, it's a little hard to pose the arms. And a big pet peeve of mine, especially with figures where the arms are covered, why did they choose to do single jointed elbows? It just impacts posability, and I think a figure like this would have just been easy to do double jointed. And then the other issue, the ankles. I managed to get him posed up without using the stand, but the ankles do feel like they're on the weaker end. So in the permanent display, I will probably end up using the stand. But overall, I have to say I'm impressed here. For a third-party release, the work that was put in, particularly with the tailoring, is outstanding and definitely helps bring the character to life. Price-wise, this was a little more expensive than your typical third parties, just a little over $200, so closer to 3.0 pricing. But at that cost, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think the figure is better than it probably had any right to be. So Pop Toys, definitely a company I'll be keeping an eye out for in the future, and I'd be happy to pick up another one of their figures, especially considering how this one turned out. And look, it's a simple figure, but it's executed remarkably well, and I have to give them credit for that. So that was a quick look at Dwight Manfredi by Pop Toys. Really happy with this pickup, and I think he's going to look great on the shelf with some of my other Sly figures. I don't think it's a figure for everyone. I would imagine most people picking this up were fans of the show. As a fan, I'm really excited to have him. So let me know your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching and spending a little time with me. And if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.